Long years ago, we made a trip with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge.
8 नवंबर 2016 की रात्रि को 12 बजे से
चीफ मिनिस्टर के लिए मेरा एक ही संदेश है कि वो राज धर्म का पालन करें।
हार्डवेयर वालों की सोच क्या होती है, हार्ड वर्क वालों की सोच क्या होती है।
अरे ये ना पंजाब की खुशबू।
So, सबसे पहले तो the first thing that I saw like an hour ago is the arrival dances that are happening on G20. Now, something that I just noticed right before you joined is that so white countries are getting shape of you, but the brown countries are getting like a Gujarati something. This I don't really know the song. So
even like I think the someone had like मला जाऊ द्या ना घरी वाजले की बारा, the Marathi song. It literally means
so there's a third song as well.
Like I mean there was like one clip I saw. I don't know who the president was exactly, but you're right. It was it was a non-white president. And like मला जाऊ द्या ना घरी वाजले की what that means is let me go home. It's 12 o'clock. Right? It's a Launi song and it's very sexual.
With like much like Shape of You. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly.
So I just see sometimes what happens is, and this is a theory that I've been thinking about a lot. Just because some people are either rich or in like powerful position, we just assume that they must be smart to kind of get there. But the more I see of like the other thing, your second tweet, and we can kind of or retweet rather from Rocky's thing, is about the G20 menu and it being vegetarian. Although I don't think it is 100% vegetarian, because I also saw like a non-vegetarian Trump chicken or something.
No, but that's a fake image apparently. So essentially someone somewhere in some restaurant is going overboard with this G20 thing, and they changed their menu to have like Trump chicken and Biden thing. Even the person who posted that, if you look at the comments below, people are calling him out as like, haha, engagement bait tha, don't get upset.
Acha. So is it vegetarian though?
Apparently the president's dinner is definitely vegetarian, like which is happening today, which is the big dinner for all the people where Khadge is not invited, poor thing. So that is vegetarian, but I don't know the rest of the things. The rest of the time, maybe there is non-veg everywhere.
So the thing so both these things, right? Vegetarian to chalo ek taraf rakhte hai because that's a whole different kind of social issue. But who is like एक तो ना पहली चीज जो मैंने नोटिस करा, आई एम सॉरी, कि ये हर देश like it's a rotating thing. So Indonesia did it and Argentina did it before. Why and how is this man able to sell it so well is something that I am fascinated by. Because ordinary enough knowledge people are also buying into यार अपना G20 हो रहा है और it's like literally everywhere, or that too so tacky, man.
I've been thinking about this question for a while now, at least for a while. So the thing is, now that I have started my YouTube channel, I'm also thinking of a few things. One is in the past, since I came to Delhi in 2011, right? 2011, 2012, 2013, you'll remember all the bawal was happening. But since 2013 end and 2014, lead up to 2014, Modi has been there. Right, he's a permanent fixture, pretty much on all of our faces, right? All the time. And now it's been 10 years, almost 10 years. I was thinking that in this whole 10 years, especially my news period, it starts from 2017, I was looking at the news, reacting to it, looking at the news, reacting to it, looking at the news. And even now, when you're reading out my tweets, that is what I get from it, right? Abhi G20 ho raha hai, so I'm giving opinions on G20, right? But what this establishment is really good at is throwing these things at us constantly so that we react, right? And everyone, not just like liberals, but also like bhakts, like sab pe just constantly kuch na kuch news mein lana hai, and it has to, like, Modi is at the center of it, right? So on my YouTube channel, so I'm starting this new series which I'm currently editing. I'm calling it Modi Review. Now, my idea is to basically just look at what he has done in 10 years. And like the advantage is this man is one of the most well documented prime ministers we've ever had. And if we are looking at it like a whole, like zoomed out 10-year picture, it's really staggering the kind of shit that you can find.
So the first thing that makes me think is, so there are two kinds of things that happen. One is, if you think about the things that this person or this regime has done, there's like GDP data. Now, like, at least for me, I don't trust the validity of it.
There
And
was a
I think
report recently
Abhi,
on that
Ashok
also.
Modi from
Yeah.
Princeton.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so, and this is not the first time, right? This is not the first time that someone is saying this. This has been said over and over and over again.
Multiple times.
Now, so my question to you is: so when you say what he's done, what do you mean by that? Like,
So okay, you're right actually, because so I'm reading this book, right? Akar Patel's Price of the
Guruji.
Modi Year, right? Price of the Modi Years. It's a very good book, right? But at the same time, it's a book full of reference links. Like basically data, what is the the rankings that Modi got us, all the things he has done. It's a very nicely collected thing about the Modi years, right? Now that I'm taking your question forward, वहाँ पे भी है मतलब GDP ये whatever. He doesn't really ask the question. मतलब he does question the data sometimes, but like he's not really asking the question कि अरे this is all made up or whatever. It's just a exercise to just put it all together, right? So I am trying to do something similar, but in a very different way. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to do a lot of pattern recognition, right? So for example, like just one example, and I don't want to give away the video completely, but the first episode is about brand Modi, right? So whenever you have a brand, right, you want to sell a product like a mineral water bottle or whatever, ek to you talk about the actual attributes of the product ki haan filter karke pani de rahe ho types, right? Or you make up some attributes that you can sell with the product, right? Himalayan water, more oxygen, whatever, right? I think what has happened with Modi is exactly that, which is, so this man has gotten certain attributes from the media, popular culture, and also propaganda, right? Attributes like, oh, he's a great orator, right? You must have heard this as well.
of course,
He's a simple man, fakir admi. Things like, oh, he's a creative disruptor. There are entire books written on this, right? Stuff like that. So what I'm doing is I'm going through all of these attributes one at a time, and also trying to figure out if this works in government at all, if that makes sense. Like, Modi as a person is election machine, speeches dete rehte hain, amazing. But after that is done, the actual work of governance comes in, right? Where none of these qualities kind of work. So that's the idea there. So I'm not really looking at data, but I'm also trying to form this pattern which you should also be able to see everywhere.
this is a fantastic point, actually. You know why? So since the topic is you or your Twitter feed today, so a few years ago you tweeted something, and we had a very interesting chota sa conversation around it. You tweeted ki if you were made the prime minister, you as in your reader, whoever is reading it, what would you do? And like, if something of that sort. अब मेरे को भी exactly याद नहीं, but I clearly remember you tweeted that out. And I responded to it that what I will do is I will surround myself with smart people who know their shit, because as one person, I cannot know everything.
Yes.
And then I'll hear what they are saying and then do stuff. Now, when you talk about the brand and it working or not, the biggest problem that I have with this individual, which is very different from, say, a Vajpayee, who's also right wing and not my favorite person. But the problem is that this man does not. He's like a one man universe. Every मैंने मजाक में कई बार ये बोला है कि हर मिनिस्टर का पोर्टफोलियो ये है टू सपोर्ट लाइक मोदी जी का पीआर.
Right.
That's literally what everyone does.
Right.
And everything from like giving 70,000 job applications ka wo thing to Vande Bharat to everything, this man has to do it by himself. Which then makes me question ki, let's say, like, even if he had a lot of different qualities, how would that result in any productive growth for this country if this man wants to do everything all by himself? Like, हम में कोई भी नहीं कर सकता यार, कोई
Yeah,
भी
yeah.
नहीं कर सकता, right? So my question is ki how, like, if you look at his branding, I'm guessing you look at some real qualities
Yeah,
and then some
examples. Yeah,
created qualities, right?
yeah.
But even his real qualities, if there are some, I don't know how that will really help this
No.
country.
So
you
like
know?
let's just
Yeah.
take the speaker thing, right? As an attribute, a brand attribute, right? Modi ji is a great orator, right? He speaks really well. He gathers a crowd. He has a pull. All the things. All of those things are true, by the way. So like, for example, I would say that he does have like a presence on stage. He has the ability to pull a crowd. He has this. He carefully words his speech all the time and gives throwaway lines which becomes news or whatever, like some idhar udhar ka ye also, like that kapdon se pehchan lete hai ya whatever, thought out lines and clearly deliberate lines, right? He has a style of speaking also, right? Which is he will say, let's say something like oh, Congress bahut corrupt hai ki nahi, and then the crowd will be like yeah, and then like hai ki nahi, like yeah, ऐसे कि तो क्या करना चाहिए, and like, but he will never ask like a non open ended question. He'll be like, तो उनको जेल में डालना चाहिए कि नहीं डालना चाहिए, and डालना चाहिए, and then he's like, oh, तो फिर किसको वोट दोगे, हमको वोट दोगे कि नहीं दोगे, हाँ हाँ देंगे. So he does this sequence constant during his speeches, right? Now, as far as speech goes, as far as vote getting goes, this works. It's a great playbook, right? For that brand. But in government, it doesn't work though, because in government you can't do one way communication, right? You have to, as you said, surround yourself with smarter people, listen to them, understand what they're saying, and also figure out things like incremental changes, right? In government you need incremental changes, so you need to also figure out deploy kaise karenge, ye kaise karenge, and that takes time. It's a giant machinery which you have to move as the prime minister. I feel like he doesn't have the ability to do that. I mean, now over time, what I think, there is this thing in his head now that he doesn't need to do this because he's winning votes and everybody seems to just focus on that part. He doesn't feel like listening and even taking into consideration other people's points is necessary anymore, right? Because his brand is now about the speaking. So he just needs to speak. So he needs to declare things and they are somehow supposed to happen. Or he will just make sure that they seem like they are happening. Like the GDP figures you pointed out, right? So if they are not happening, then they will make up something or like play with some data or like do some other distraction move or whatever, but they will never answer your question. They do not have the capacity to listen anymore. I genuinely feel at least the top Narendra Modi himself doesn't have that capacity, and that's terrible in government.
You are reading Akar Patel. That's the book, because our listeners did not see. We can see each other. They could not see the book, so I just wanted to mention. So two things. One, Akar Patel in one of his pieces back in the day, like right when he was, I think 2013, around that period, he mentioned in his piece how Modi as chief minister acted in Gujarat, jahan par he basically, like, even Amit Shah was not a cabinet rank minister up until 2007.
Yes.
He was a state home minister or state level home minister, right? And basically for the longest period, and I don't have the exact data right now, but for the longest period, most of the opposition was suspended out of the parliament, the state assembly. And they were and initially for the first term and even like the earlier part of his second term, they were still not as like that. But like, if you see this now at center, you have to make cabinet ministers. So there are cabinet ministers, but they don't really have a job per se. Right? They just do his bidding. And as far as the opposition is concerned, 35 minutes is the average time that a bill has taken to pass. Right? But so just kind of support what you just said. But I wanted to go back to, I take serious umbrage. And you said this, and I was recently reading Ramchand Guha, and he also said this, good orator. I don't know how to See, there are two kinds of people, leaders, or who, when they talk, they can do. You can do two things. You can be like, take the lowest common denominator of our basal instincts and talk about that and flame that, or you can actually like take the conversation to like a better level.
Place. Yeah.
So when I kind of compare, say, Obama, right, and his speeches, he's a great, good orator, right? He's a really good orator, and when he talked, and the things he chose to talk about were things that, and again, not going into his politics or what he did, but he collectively wanted to take the public discourse that was happening in America to a better level. Whereas every time, like, you what you just said, na, कि करना है कि नहीं, this is 2006 में, जब वो हुआ, इशरत जहां एंड सैयद सोहराबुद्दीन, he back then he was just chief minister, so election commission, and so people said कि भाई क्या कर रहा है. He went into 2007 election rallies and said क्या करना चाहिए, छोड़ देना चाहिए, and public said kill him, kill him, kill him. So this is what he's always done. But like, how is this good oratory? This is like,
so, okay, so like there is of course the content of what you're saying, and there is the style of what you're saying, right? So like when I say he's a good orator, I'm actually talking about his vote getting ability, right? Elections mein, how effective is he? If you look at it objectively, he is very effective, right? The content of his speech, as you said, the idea of even a speech or even a dialogue is to take the conversation to a better place, right?
yeah,
But that, it never comes to that for someone like Narendra Modi, right? Which is, he starts talking, he says whatever he has to say, and then he doesn't follow up at all. He doesn't need to, because the next election that comes, he will talk about something else and he will continue that, right? And like, for example, the NCP thing, that's a very big example. NCP joined the Maharashtra government, right? But before that, like literally 10 days before that, in Madhya Pradesh, नरेंद्र मोदी इज सेइंग कि हाँ एनसीपी वालों ने घोटाला किया, उनको जेल में डालना चाहिए कि नहीं डालना चाहिए. पीपल आर लाइक या ऑफ कोर्स डालना चाहिए, राइट? दैट हैपेंड. But then 10 days later, his party brings in Ajit Pawar, and he named Ajit Pawar, which is the weirdest thing, right? So that's the thing. His whole, I think, there is some cognitive dissonance also happening here, right? Which is, he goes on stage, says things, but he feels like he doesn't need to follow up with action at all. So what better place is he going to take it to? Because he always assumes that this is the better place and I'm talking about it. So again, and there is another thing, follow up to this, right? Which is, why does he feel that it is not important to follow up with action, right? Why does he feel that speech is the only way to go and there is no response that is needed? Or like, as you said, he thinks that he knows everything probably, or assumes that he knows a lot of things, and there are enough evidences also, which I'll show in the video, right? Based on what he said. The thing is, I feel like everyone around him, and also the media and also the popular culture, memes, everything keeps repeating this point, which is, he's a great orator, that he's a great speaker, that he's a great storyteller, right? So he just does that. And what happens with the brand is that if you don't believe in it, it loses its power. So everyone around him is thriving based on that brand, right? Which is, all of his MPs got elected because of him, not the BJP, because of him. One man, like they literally said that BJP ko vote do to Modi ji ko vote jayega. Because of him, they won, right? Everyone knows that. The anchors are getting viewership because of him. I mean, at least that's the assumption. TRP and all, we'll keep it aside. Businessmen think that they are prospering because of him, right? So to make sure that these three people who are sort of pillars of power continue to do what they do, they have to believe in the brand, right? So they never tell him the reaction to his speeches or whatever it is, right? I would completely imagine that he has a firewall around him, and he basically has a lot of people just telling him what is happening, because he himself said he doesn't like to read in multiple occasions. He doesn't, right? He just wants like 10-minute summaries of everything. So which means that if you are already have this filter of information coming to you, then why would they tell him bad things? They will just upset him, right? And they don't, like, their entire existence depends on this brand. So why would they even tell the brand that, oh, by the way, people are like, shitting on you a lot because you said something like this? No, not necessary at all.
मतलब आप ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि मोदी जी क्रिएटिव फीडबैक नहीं लेते हैं?
हाँ, मतलब that's the assumption that that's
नहीं, ऐसा होता ही है ना.
working.
I mean, and the thing is कि and the thing is, again, this is not the first time this is happening with a man. In fact, my mind almost goes to like someone like a Gaddafi, because what happened is this Gaddafi, like, he started with his ideas of creating an Islamic Republic and all of that, but he ended up becoming like a caricature of with female bodyguards, and you remember all that, right? And sometimes what I feel is your firewall point is so accurate, because yaar kaun dega agar if you are working for him, why would you tell him something that will
upset him?
Yes, upset him. Why would you do that?
And the thing is, his aura is very powerful. So I've seen him in person and I've like interacted briefly with him. His aura, the people around him, they also add to the aura. It's extremely
But how much of it is just power?
scary. It is extremely scary. Like, it's intimidating. His aura is intimidating, especially when he's in public. I don't know, private, he might be a great guy. Everybody describes him as a Gujarati uncle in private or whatever it is, right? But at least when he's in like sort of public, his aura is very powerful, right? It's like he thrives on it. So everyone who is around him, who doesn't get into his inner circle, also believes in that aura. They're also like going by that. So their assumption is that, like, I can't tell him these things. And why would you? Right? Why would you? If I was working with a boss, so I had this thing happening to me personally as well, right? I've had multiple bosses as MPs. There was this one particular boss who I will not name because it's negative, who was, again, sort of powerful, great presence, business acumen, all the things, rich, right? He said certain things sometimes which were problematic, right? About like just caste and a lot of things, right? Whatever. In private to bolta hi tha zyada, but like in public also sometimes that just leaked out. And I once tried to sort of counter him about certain things, and he got very pissed off with me, right? He literally like shadow banned me for 15 days after that, where he would call everyone else inside the room, but he had specifically told them ki, yeah, you guys come, but usko thoda dur rakhna, right? He was punishing me, right? Again, like, the thing is that when you call powerful people out, there are two kinds of powerful people. One is someone who will get upset like this, but I've worked with people who actually took it very well. Like, they were like, I just formed a relationship with some of them where I was like, सर, ये जो आपने बोला था वो थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लमेटिक था, गलत था, ये वर्ड नहीं यूज करना चाहिए था, वो करना चाहिए था. And he's like, no, tell me why you think this is problematic. We'll have a conversation about it for 10-15 minutes, and there'll be actually a dialogue where either he convinces me or I convince him. But there is it is taking it to a better place. The first kind of leaders don't want the conversation to go to a better place, because it means facing realities. It means facing criticism. It means facing people who are actually trying to tell you what is right and what is wrong, right? Again, when people do that, you can either accept it or reject it, but at least sun to lo, right? It never goes to that stage. It's always at the stage where you don't want to hear anything that goes against your beliefs.
There is a degree of narcissism that is just required for someone to think that they should be in politics. ये तो पहली चीज है.
Absolutely.
दूसरी चीज, so I haven't been around a lot of politicians, but when I was like in my teens, I was at this shadi which was attended by Digvijay Singh, and nobody really thinks of Digvijay Singh as like, he's not Modi. He's not like, he's not the politician that comes to your mind when you think of charismatic politician. But like, I was like at that, and I was not like, I was what, 14, 15, so not really into politics as such. and I was mesmerized by like his personality. So now what I'm trying to say is that sometimes I feel that just having power allows you to project power, which for people who are not as powerful in your vicinity makes them feel कि, bhai, because, and when you were talking, there was another thought that I was thinking that this is it. We are not going to talk about Modi anymore after this. But ऐसा होता ही नहीं है. But I have, from like day one, I have believed this, and I still believe that he's shrewd, but he's not a smart person. He's not smart, and a lot of things that have happened in his life have happened almost by either accident or by him being at the right place at the right time, and him being also, like, the third thing is, sometimes what happens is that people care about their surroundings, sense of shame. If you don't have a sense of shame now, you can achieve a lot more, I feel.
I have to disagree with you at one point. So like smartness can also go into many ways, right? I feel like his political acumen is on point still. Like, I mean, on point in the sense, I think when it comes to winning elections, organization, getting votes, all the things, he's good at it. There is proof. I mean, he is good at it. Of course, Amit Shah is with him. He is also good at it. So, I mean, together they are doing this. I feel like then the question is, what is he smart in, right? That stuff he's smart at, like, speaking, writing, maybe like speeches, whatever. He's great at marketing himself as the brand, right?
Acha, I have a question. Just take
But sorry, just completing. But the second part is, I don't think he's very smart with government. Like, when it actually comes to doing the job you're elected for, I don't think he really cares much about it. I mean, cares in the sense he doesn't need to, as I said, right? Elections jeete raho, nobody asks you anything, and it's great.
So you will do a whole YouTube series on this. So I will
working on it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll stop right there.
Yeah.
And do something that is not part of your YouTube series. So what you just said, for this hypothesis, assume that Narendra Modi and Amit Shah are now somehow, in some miraculous ways, suddenly part of the Congress party.
Sure.
And they're leading the Congress party. Do you and without changing whatever the Congress party, let's say center left, whatever their political ideology, do you think that these two people can make Congress start winning elections as well if they were somehow part of this establishment?
I feel like वहाँ पे ideology wise Congress में भी Indira Gandhi बनी थी. Like, I mean, like, if you think about it, like, I mean, like, if you think that ideology or way of speaking or belief systems will change the way they win elections, I doubt it, right? I mean, so what I'm meaning to say is that I think if they go to the Congress party with the same sort of structure, I feel like they will bend it to their will. They're those kind of people.
No, but in my condition, there is a condition in my question. They cannot make Congress like BJP. Like
they don't need to. If you think about it, if you look at if you remove all the layers from BJP and Congress about the marketing layers, the propaganda layers, right? Essentially, BJP is just doing what the Congress did. And the Congress does and says what the BJP does.
So there are certain differences.
Like, I'll tell you. Okay, there are again two differences. I agree with you, right? But where I'm coming from is, especially with things like welfare, government schemes. Again, I'm sticking to government here, right? Because I'm analyzing that part of it. Again, you can talk about the communal things. We'll talk about that, but I'm talking specifically about governance, right? Manrega, they wanted, Congress wanted. Aadhaar was a way to distribute welfare. Ration, 80 crore ka hum ration de rahe. They actually have posters bragging about it. The thing is, both of these parties know that they need to be socialist and left to survive.
Economically, yes.
Yeah, economically, right? You can also argue that even the Congress now agrees that a large chunk of government needs to be privatized, right? Because I think towards the fag end of 2010, etc., they were also going in that direction, just that they're doing it in shady ways, right? What Modi is great at doing is marketing this. That's the difference. So policy wise, similar, right? Because I mean, they're just saying what the other is saying, and they steal schemes from each other all the time, right? Now the difference though is in the way of narrative building. So I think the difference is that BJP does like to divide and rule. Right?
Huh.
They go for that lowest common denominator. They tap into faith, they tap into differences, and then they create like an us versus them scenario, and effectively, like consolidate. Congress, though, is trying to, at least now, is trying to sort of bring everyone together. You will all vote for us, etc. But then the messaging gets diluted. So if Modi goes from BJP to Congress and none of these things have changed, then I feel like he will still uh, be able to bend it to his will, right? Despite all these things I told you,
Well,
because I'll tell you why. These things are not related to the systemic changes that Modi and Amit Shah has brought to the system at large, right? Electoral bonds, they'll still exist. Then and both of them want it, right? Abhi Congress power mein aayegi, they are not removing electoral bonds. It's actually great for them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Definitely.
Institutional usage of the CBI, ED to go against opponents.
They've done it before also.
Precisely. And the Congress has also, to a certain extent, also tried to do that, right? In West Bengal, Kerala, there are examples. So if Modi changes hands, these institutions will still bend before them. No? They will bend that part. So they will make people sort of like bend things to their will. Will it be that effective? That's a different question. I mean, again, like you tell me, what do you think?
I don't disagree with anything that you said, but I think and I don't think you disagree with me as such, but I feel a lot of the power that the BJP, especially Modi and Shah, have also comes from how our social fabric has become. And I know that a lot of people like listening to this will, who are very smart, will tell us, oh, it was always like this in, the broader leftist Twitter janta I was talking about. Like, but anyway, I don't want to go there. My point is कि अभी ये recently, for example, this thing happened. The teacher slapping or getting a boy to slap a Muslim boy, or the sheer like communalization of everything. I think a lot of the power that these people derive comes from that. And if that is one thing that they could not do, then then a lot of how many people, Meghnad, how many people think so deeply about policy positions like you are doing or you do?
Not many. No,
So-
not at all. I don't think they need to. Again, as I said, right, the kind of positions I'm taking, the kind of analysis I'm doing, or whatever I'm doing, that also involves asking a lot of uncomfortable questions.
And you are basically trying to do what you're trying to lift the discourse to a
Precisely,
better place.
right?
ठीक है?
Correct.
नहीं, I get that.
Yeah.
But does and this was ये question था मेरा, मतलब वैसे शुरू में 10-12 मिनट का कि forget Modi. I want you to take a moment and tell me like about our society. What do you feel? And again, I know that there may be
Very
things that you
broad
have to
question, but-
censor,
Yeah.
but like the reason I asked you the Modi, Shah, and Congress question is because of कि ultimately a lot of it is coming from the way the society reacts, and
one thing about the society, I think in one of my videos I did this whole thing about man-child Meghnad, right? It's a story where I'm imagining myself coming to Delhi in this time period, starting a new job, which is working in the policy space and all the things. The thing is, I feel like if I came to Delhi now, I would get eventually radicalized as well. And there's a reason for that, because when I was like young, which is like 21, 22 years of age, basically had achieved practically nothing in life worth mentioning. बहुत insecurity भरा था मेरे में, right? And I was also constantly telling myself that it is my fault that this is happening, right? Like that I wasn't good at education, I wasn't good at this, I wasn't good at that, etc. I never questioned the system. I never questioned my caste privilege. I never questioned anything else around me, right? But the rude awakening that happened is when people who were way smarter than me essentially sat me down and really kindly schooled me about certain things. Like I genuinely used to believe that reservations is a bad idea because that's what my dad, uncle, everybody told me for years, right? I had no desire to read anything about it, but I was just believing in it. But when they said, "Ki, listen," someone said, "Ki, read Annihilation of Caste, read some books, like think about this properly, read some Dalit experiences, read about it, read about Ambedkar." I did that, right? And then it kind of struck me that all of these insecurities that I had, I wasn't alone. At least I didn't have the insecurities that come with identity. The tragic part is that I think when we talk about privilege, we also need to talk about what kind of insecurities we have within ourselves, right? Which is, ठीक है, मेरा करियर का इनसिक्योरिटी हो सकता है, मेरा एजुकेशन का इनसिक्योरिटी हो सकता है, बट एट द सेम टाइम आई एम अ मैन, आई एम अ ब्राह्मण, आई एम अपर कास्ट, तो वो तो इनसिक्योरिटी है ही नहीं, मतलब कहीं रेडार में ही नहीं है. But at the same time, if you add Dalit to this, or if you add a woman, or if you add a trans person to this, all of those insecurities also matter, right? So my thing is that when I don't have this identity based insecurity, it's very easy to sort of use my other insecurities to turn me towards propaganda. So so the privileged, right, which is like what Ravish Kumar says, the WhatsApp uncles, or the Gurugram where he did this video, Monogram, right, where all these uncles who speak in English are not saying anything against the violence that is happening right outside their door, right? That privilege is actually being insecurity is being weaponized to sort of convince people that the way to go is to just look at the other side and curse them, and they are the villains. And I feel like that is how I'm looking at Indian society right now as well, which is young people everywhere are alone. There is a epidemic of loneliness currently. They're getting their validation online, right? And when you get your validation online, it is not real. Like, people say whatever the fuck they want under whatever names they want, and you just take the words very seriously. You don't need to, right? And but nobody has really talked to them because they didn't get that community, they didn't get the validation, they didn't get the support that is required for a young person to actually find out more about the society that they live in, right? So young India is going that way, which is
hyper radicalization,
hyper radicalization, but also their first exposure to politics was Modi, right? For the last 10 years, Modi is here. All the people who turned 18 during that time and continue to go on and become voters and active part of the workforce, they grew up looking at Modi as the way democracy works. And that, I think, is extremely worrying, because this is the crowd that will then go up to, like, let's say our 30s, mid 30s, etc. They will be the ones who will be talking to even the younger generations. That will just carry forward.
So then what explains people like you and me, or our age group, being radicalized, or people older than us? I mean
it's really sad when you think about it also, because if people had jobs and better things to do and not disguised unemployment, where they are not getting any validation from work, where their job is bad, they just don't have any creative outlet or anything of that sort, they draw their validation from a community, and turns out that radical people are really great at forming communities. And that's what it is, right? It's basically this feeling that I am a part of something bigger than myself, where I'm actually contributing to something. It might all be made up, but still it is like a great source of validation.
So there is also one thing, right? And I'm sure you've thought of this, like how the notion of patriotism has been tied to Hinduism, or being Hindu, right? In fact, so much so that it's so funny when, like, recently I was watching this, because that's the kind of things we do, watching this early 90s ka movie Amresh Puri ka, jisme he's the villain, obviously, and he's a dictator of a country, but this is an imaginary country,
okay,
that wants to harm India. अरे बहुत बहुत हमने पॉडकास्ट में
what is this? Yeah,
अरे वो गाना, शोम शोम शोम,
I think
I cannot think of the name of the movie, but basically it's like an imaginary, like, country And anyway, the point being, even like if you think about like Gabbar or Dr. Dang or these kind of villains, they are all imaginary entities. They are, but now it's all very like real. It's Pakistan, it's the Muslim, it's and something that I think we cannot ignore at all is how the idea of patriotism has been tied to this notion of being from a certain religion. Because if you're not from that religion, if you're a Muslim, then you most definitely cannot be true to India.
I wouldn't agree when you said that these things are very real. I feel like they're still made up in a lot of ways. Again, it's the oldest trick in the book. I feel like, politics may, I mean, we'll find examples of this everywhere, which is like, if you live in a village and there is like a bhukmari happening or some problem is happening, the head of the village can just point to the other village and say ki wo log attack karne wale. And then this village just comes together because then nothing else matters, because now it's a question of survival, right? So what this government and this regime especially is good at doing is making you question your survival at any given point with whatever made up reasons, right? George Soros, क्या कर रहा है जॉर्ज सोरोस, क्या कर
See,
सकता है तुमको? Like, tell me, like, realistically, in a bhakt mind, right? If I ask this question to them कि अच्छा ठीक है, you believe that Soros is funding me and Rahul Gandhi, आज ही आया एक comment कि
is Soros funding you as well?
हाँ, मुझे भी फंड
अच्छा,
कर रहा
अच्छा,
है.
अच्छा, अच्छा, अच्छा.
Like, because I said no कि I shared this article which you spoke about in G20, which is poor are being removed, not
हाँ.
poverty. Where there is this drive, curfew लगा है अभी बाहर.
हाँ.
They picked up all
CNBC
the
Singapore,
beggars.
right?
Yeah, they picked up all the beggars and left them 50 kilometers away from Delhi, right? Which is what they do, like when there's an international event, like all governments have been doing it, but this one, of course, is doing it as well. So I posted that article, एंड उसके नीचे रिस्पॉन्स क्या था, हाँ ये सब होमलेस लोगों को मेघनाद के यहाँ पे भेज दो, सोरोस फंड करेगा, ही कैन बेसिकली कीप द होमलेस, राइट? एंड आई एम लाइक दैट्स अ ग्रेट आइडिया, लाइक लेट्स गेट सोरोस टू फंड मी, आई विल स्टार्ट अ होमलेस शेल्टर, एटलीस्ट उनको दूर तो नहीं जाना पड़ेगा. बट इफ यू आस्क समवन लाइक हिम कि भाई मतलब तू मुझे बता, रियलिस्टिकली स्पीकिंग, सोरोस तेरा क्या बिगाड़ रहा है? लाइक व्हाट रिलेशनशिप डू यू डायरेक्टली हैव विद सोरोस?
मैं बता सकता हूँ,
बताओ.
and I'm honest, like seriously, I'm telling you.
हाँ.
So the one thing that they are convinced is that people hate Hinduism.
Yeah.
There's Hindu phobia. And because people hate Hinduism and there is Hindu phobia, somehow the Muslims and the Christians and the communists and everyone has got together, and their only purpose right now is to somehow dismantle India, because India is currently doing so good that everyone is both jealous of India. Also, Modi ji also has made many, क्योंकि मोदी जी ने भारत में नाम भी रोशन किया, तो somehow both things exist in that same mind. यहाँ पे नाम भी रोशन हुआ है and jealous भी है. तो Soros is basically trying to dismantle that identity that you talk. So if your Hindu-ness is the primary identity that you hold, and if someone has convinced you somehow that it has suddenly become so valuable after 2014 that now there are people who are trying to kind of dismantle it, that is what Soros can do to you.
But I agree with you. Like, I mean, the narrative, amazing conspiracy theories which everybody believes in, that Hindu khatre mein hai, whole thing, right? Which is again playing up that same insecurity which I was talking about, which is that you are under attack. Right? But when you ask kaun hai, like did you in the last 10 years someone come and slap you around? Did someone come and actually physically attack you or your family, or did they steal money from you, or did they steal a car from you, or did anything? I think 99% people will be like, nahi, aise to kuch hua nahi hai mere sath. But at the same time, in their imaginary heads, this can happen at any point of time, right? The whole thing about they want to break India. Again, what does that even mean? Right? Like, what do they mean? Like, they want like states to be separate? They want like, what do they want exactly?
And why?
Exactly, why? Kisko fayda hoga uska? Right? I think one thing which people, I had spoken about this a long time ago with my boss as well. We put it in one of his speeches also. There was this JNU का I think riot हुआ था, and उसके बाद riot नहीं, मतलब JNU का जो student
टुकड़े
alone.
टुकड़े
And then the
टुकड़े टुकड़े
हाँ, टुकड़े-टुकड़े. उसके बाद there were some clashes
Hmm.
that happened also, and they imposed Section 144 and did all the usual clamp down things, right? Internet बंद कर दिया. I was like, we should also ask the question कि इससे economic loss कितना हो रहा है, right? If you basically manage to convince businessmen that rioting is bad for business, I feel like they will be way more convinced than anything else. I genuinely think so, right? Like for example, in Delhi right now,
Agreed.
3 दिन के लिए बंद है. अगर तुम एक सीपी वाले के बिजनेसमैन के पास जाओगे एंड यू बेसिकली आर लाइक ओह बहुत प्राउड, एवरीबॉडी इज प्राउड, लाइक व्हाटएवर, एंड यू आस्क हिम अच्छा तुम्हारा बिजनेस में कितना लॉस हुआ ये 3 दिन में, राइट? यू विल इंस्टेंटली सी लाइक अ चेंज. कितना लॉस हुआ तुम्हारा इसकी वजह से, छोड़ो लाइक कंट्री प्राउड, ऑल द थिंग्स लाइक यू आर सैक्रिफाइसिंग योर प्रॉफिट्स एक्सेट्रा, बट जस्ट टेल मी how much loss will you make, like will you have to bear for these 3 days, and is anybody going to recompensate you for that?
So here's a very interesting thing, because I recently 2 दिन पहले tweeted about this. So while you'll find a lot of Twitter tech bros or in general tech bros talking about the India, the capitalist India, and how जो भी कर रहे हैं, infra roads and stuff, we are not really capitalistic, and we
No, we
don't
are.
really. No. Let me actually say what and we don't even like have the smarts to be that. Because the reason I'm saying this is, if India was truly money minded and really wanted, these rich businessmen, forget us, these rich businessmen really wanted to make money, the one thing that they would have done is to put immense pressure on this government to make sure that India Pakistan cricket happens far more regularly, and with a regularity that can, because every time that they meet, it's a money making bonanza for the producers, the TV channels, the
Absolutely.
sponsors, everyone, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And they are leaving so much money on the table just because there is no reason for India to not play Pakistan. There is no reason for Pakistani players to not be in the IPL. All of that. So to your point, I think nobody really cares, Meghnad. I don't think a lot of these businessmen, I mean, again, to my initial point, I don't think they're as smart as you or even I used to think. Look at this Mahindra guy. I'm sorry I'm taking names, but like, look at these guys and the Goenka person.
Yes.
And even beyond their uncle-like tweets, they're just not smart. If they were smart, they would never let such an opportunity. Virat Kohli, who's such a huge brand, will probably retire without ever playing a cricket game against Pakistan in Pakistan. Imagine the money-making opportunity that it could have been.
Correct. But another thing, I will apply the same logic that I did earlier, right? Where the smartness needs to apply. You know how tragically, not just in India, in all of our society, there is this one thing that people go by, is that if a person is successful at one thing, they can be successful at everything else. Like for example, Mahindra, who built, I mean, I think he's the second generation. In a second generation, है ना? So his father built a company, he's managing it, whatever it is, right? He's rich, right? He has a big company. Maybe he did like some initiatives of his own, which he got praise for, whatever. That doesn't mean he's great at political thought. That doesn't mean he's great at critical thinking at all, right? He might be great at critical thinking when it comes to company affairs, when it comes to car manufacturing, maybe assembly lines, whatever he does, right? I don't know. The same doesn't apply to all fields, right? So what is also lacking in, at least what I see in the WhatsApp uncles, is humility, right? To actually admit that you can be good at one thing, but you don't have to be good at everything else, right? So when someone else is good at something else, you should also give the same respect to them, right? For example, I have worked in parliament for 7 years, right? I have literally gone through every piece of legislation that passes through that building with a fine tooth comb and written speeches on it, right? I have written questions, I have written notices, I have done all the things, right? After that, for 5 years, I was covering parliament from the outside. I was also covering news, I was following current affairs, which gives me a total of 12 years of experience, right? Now, when I'm saying something, it also draws from that experience, right? But I might not know anything about car manufacturing, but if I counter someone like Anand Mahindra, people will jump on me, right? Instead of him. Because people should be like, yeah, he has done his work. He has basically has some experience and he's speaking from that experience. That credit is never given to everyone, right? The rich, powerful capitalist person gets to say everything. Like Elon Musk, he's defining free speech now. उसको सब like seriously लेंगे, because he Tesla चलाता है, Tesla he put internet in space and he didn't, like multiple other people did, but जो भी है, right? So it's the same with Modi, right? You know, as I said, he's great at speaking, he's great at getting votes. That doesn't mean he's great at government, right? You know, like maybe like a Nitin Gadkari is better at government because he's been PWD minister, he has done a bunch of things in Maharashtra government, all the things. His experience in administration carries forward. Maybe he's not a great speaker, right? But this mutual respect is never there. Nobody wants to admit that they can fail at something and they don't know anything or something, right? This whole thing about I don't know what you're talking about, please tell me more, is drastically absent in our society.
Oh, of course. ये तो छोटे से, right? Because the more, like,
Yeah.
even from schools, right? It's but the thing that I find fascinating in even within this is that there are people who will believe you based on, like, why is Modi so amazing, or someone else so amazing, and not say Raghuram Rajan?
No,
Because
also, like, okay, I'll give you another example. Let's talk about that. Beer biceps. Why is beer biceps amazing?
why is Beer Biceps amazing?
Why do people think he's amazing?
To be completely honest with you, I don't think people think he's amazing. I think that people, much like I guess Joe Rogan or someone, right? People think that they bring in amazing people, and because they are unbiased, that's what people think, that they are unbiased. So they let people talk without, because they don't have an agenda. If you start a show like Beer Biceps, it will never succeed.
It will
Well,
not.
I hope it does. I hope it does, but it will not succeed. The reason is
People
that
will find me
you're
annoying.
already associated with an agenda, and both Joe Rogan and Beer Biceps will never ask any questions that disagree with what their guest is saying.
But I would say Joe Rogan, still, to give a little more credit to him than Beer Biceps, he does ask, like, I know, I agree with you, he does, you know, like do a lot of, you know, like positive reinforcement, but बीच में वो घुसा देता है एक आध question, you know, like Beer Biceps I don't think has the critical thinking ability to do that, right? So what I think works for Beer Biceps is that, as you said, he lets people speak, right? He never challenges them. And therefore, when you get someone to say something and you give them complete space to do it, वो कुछ भी बकचोदी करेंगे, कोई कुछ
I
नहीं
almost
challenge करेगा.
suspect. I almost suspect that when he's inviting someone on his show, he asks them for a list of questions that he's supposed to ask them.
हो वो तो MyGov में तो definitely, like the politician series में तो definitely there was like a list that was pre-approved, etc. There was a News Laundry story on this also. But my thing is, even if he doesn't do that, even if he doesn't, right? If he does his own quote unquote research or whatever it is, right? But his questions are also very standard, by the way. You know, like he's like, हाँ आप AI के बारे में क्या सोचते हो? किसी को भी पूछेगा वो, right? He'll be like, oh, do you think quantum computing will take us to the future? Whatever, right? Or he will ask something like, oh, I always believe in like a startup culture. So all the buzzwords are there in his questions, and the guests say whatever they want, right? But my thing is, what makes him great at what he does is exactly that, which is that he doesn't challenge people, right? I don't think we are used to being challenged also. So the reason why my podcast will not work is because you will say something, and if I see something, if I see you saying something problematic or I don't agree with, I'll stop you and I'll say that no, actually I disagree, I want to like add my point to it. Beer Biceps doesn't do that, right? Indians at large don't do that, right? When there is a like, you know, it's such a authority figure servile attitude also. It's on display full time in his podcast as well, where the guest that comes is always he is sitting on this pedestal, and Beer Biceps like a nice, like kind, like, oh, acha, okay, aisa hota hai, oh, okay, thank you sir, you're so amazing. It's all that servile attitude that he shows, which I think a lot of people relate to. A lot of people have these authority figures in their heads and around them, and they see like, ye to normal hai, ye to conversation normal. It's not a conversation, that's just like fluffoganda, as I put it.
I agree. So the one thing that on that note, the one thing that I was the most surprised by when I moved to the States for my grad school is the norms of like a professor student relationship are so different from what I had experienced in India.
Hmm. How so?
Where, well, and again, things might be different in, say, a Delhi or a Bombay, but I can get up anytime and leave the class uh, without the professor really. If I'm polite, I'll tell him ki, hey, let's say I'm going to the bathroom. I'll do that. I literally, professor is, and again, there will be people who'll come, कि ऐसा नहीं होता मेरे university में. So again, this is my anecdotal experience, right? There are kids who would sit on their seats and have their feet up on the table as the professor is speaking. There are kids who'll raise their hands or just get up and say, hey, professor, your class was still this. I have an appointment, and leave if the professor is a few minutes beyond his time or his or her time. So this completely like rocked my kind of sensibilities of how like a classroom is. Because even during my engineering in India, if either you just bunk, huh? And even when like I still like laugh at things like there were moments when we were bunking as a group or as a class, and the professor would see us, and the professor would run behind us, and we would be running like ऐसा हो गया
Sure.
कैंटीन में.
Yeah.
They'll find us, they'll be like आज class नहीं किया. Yeah, but
Mhm.
nobody gives a fuck.
No, but that's the thing, no?
Ah.
Like, I mean, I think there is also like that sense of, I mean, I get where you're coming from, because I've had a very few people, professors, teachers, who did exactly this, right? But there were, like, I think two off the top of my head, right? One was in CA and one was in school as well, right? But school, it was a very different atmosphere. So I'll just talk about the CA classes that I attended. Same thing, right? The professor didn't give a shit. Like, you bring your laptop, you sit on your you open it, if you're on your phone, he will never tell you or say anything, whatever, and he'll just go on teaching. Sometimes he will try to like poke you in a very nice way, hey, did you understand what I just said, or like whatever. And it was all in like packaged as good humor, right? There are those, but largely our authority figures, which include teachers, parents, etc., they have this inherent habit of just projecting power, right? Even when they don't have anything, right? So in the case that you are talking about, I think the relationship wahan pe is the teacher and student. The thing that you're getting from the teacher is knowledge, right?
Mhm.
But you will take it at your own pace. You're given that sort of leeway कि तुम अपने टाइम पे ढंग से सीखो, right? If you are curious, ask me questions. If you are
Yeah, go on, sorry.
so if you're curious, we welcome your questions. We will try to answer them. If we don't know, we'll tell you we don't know, right? But what happens with Indian teachers and authority figures is, if you ask them questions and they don't know, they will never admit it. B, they will just scold you कि अरे बड़ों से ऐसे नहीं बात करते. They'll point out your tone. They will bring up your past mistakes, and they will basically start questioning you as a person, right? And completely destroy you in the process. They will humiliate you. They will do whatever they can to just hide from their own insecurity of not knowing something. I feel like that dynamic is very much active in India right now, everywhere you go, right? There's this example I keep giving, right? Which is, if you are a citizen today in India, learn to be more entitled, right? Just learn to be
Yes.
more entitled. Like, you should not treat your leaders as someone who knows everything, who's like this godlike figure, everything they say is correct, etc. They aren't, right? The leader might be good at one thing, two things, but not all things, right? And what makes a good leader is, if they know they are not good at certain things, they also make sure there are people around them which know those things, so that
Yes.
collectively they can work and do better, right? If you are a leader who assumes that you know everything, which is kind of impossible, you will never have those people around you. So anytime a question comes towards you, like the conference question that Narendra Modi got, right?
Hmm.
Very simple question which everyone in the media is asking, not him directly, but all the time, everywhere, right? He should have a prepared answer.
That is what
It's
I'm glad that,
bizarre.
like, literally, that is like, if I were his speech writing team,
Yeah.
which I have a question, like, does he have that? But anyway,
Ha, ha, ha.
like, literally, like, पहला question क्या पूछा sir? This should be the first question and this should be the first response that you prepare. So what
Right.
exactly what they're thinking?
And it
So
doesn't
does
take
he
a
have a speech writing
genius.
team, by the way?
It genuinely doesn't take a genius to anticipate such questions, right? For example, if I'm saying that if I was in Modi's team,
Yeah.
right, and he was like, अच्छा sir, आपको एक question आने वाला है, तो मैं आपको 5 possible questions दे रहा हूँ कि जो आ सकते हैं, right? One, let's say, like, for
This would be the
example,
first question, sir.
first will be communal strife हो रहा है, like people, minorities are being affected, all the things. Second is press freedom. There is an accusation against you that you are clamping down on press. Third is opposition के against आप action लेते हो, right? Whatever. Fourth is like if there is like a current event that is happening that everybody in India is talking about, let's say a Manipur, that might come, right? And maybe one more question which is more general, right? Oh, where do you see India in 10 years? Where do you see India going in your term, or whatever it is, right? These are the 5 basic anticipated questions that you give to the prime minister before he goes to the conference. Now his job is to read them, think about them. Even if he doesn't take notes, at least he should anticipate it. At least he should be prepared for it. The fact that he gave that answer, which was just nothingness, it was just a word salad just came out of his mouth. It made no sense. People tried to translate it in different ways, but it still made no sense, right? Um, he, so that's the thing, that these are just some few examples of how we treat our authority figures, and when they go outside to a place like US where they don't do that, they completely fall apart.
Does he have a speech writing team? Does he have a team that writes stuff for him?
I'm not sure. I mean, like, he must be getting some research inputs, etc. 10-slide presentations every once in a while, and then he writes his own. I
Because
don't know
I was
exactly.
baffled इस बात पे, right? Because literally, और क्या, अच्छा, इससे एक और दूसरी चीज याद
I
आई.
don't think he writes his election speeches. That I know. Like, he has pointers which he wants to talk about. Like, he'll maybe write like certain things. But when it comes to like a prepared speech where he needs those teleprompters or whatever, I think someone is writing it.
Who is that person? I want to
I
know.
don't know.
Because sometimes, like again, the Obama or Biden, these speech writers, they are like celebrities in the US. At least
Yeah.
people who like consume politics, they are celebrities.
But यहाँ पे तो, like, even if there's a speechwriter, they will never ever get any credit, because all the credit needs to go to supreme leader. So of course, like, I mean, the whole idea that someone else might be writing his speeches is also so, like, oh my god, कुछ भी बोल दिया, क्या बात कर रहे हो? Because Modi ji can do no wrong and he can do everything.
मुझे उस दिन I was so surprised because I was like, what else were you expecting that they will ask? When you agreed to this, what else did you like? There is literally nothing else that I'd expect anyone to ask.
Of
That's
course
one.
not.
The second thing is that when like this whole press conference thing, right? So this is clear that this man, again, we are back to this guy, but anyway, I'm sorry. This man who, as the
No,
story
okay,
goes,
wait, stop. I have to stop you here. I also think I used to do this, okay? I used to do this where I'm thinking about Modi, right? I'm thinking about Modi and I'm talking about him, and then I would feel guilty कि इसको इतना क्यों भाव दे रहे हैं हम, right? I've stopped doing that for a very simple reason. He makes sure that you think about him on a day-to-day basis. अगर तुम अभी दिल्ली में जाओ बाहर, right?
Oh my
100
God.
मीटर के डिफरेंस में 4 पोस्टर मिलेंगे, right? His face is literally everywhere. Twitter पे जाओ, every 4th, 5th tweet is about him, right? He makes sure that he's on your face, in your face all the time. So you do think about him. But what happens is when I speak about him, I feel guilty. Why? Like, I mean, he wants us to speak about him, so I will. Just that I will just say whatever I want, and I don't need to. You don't need to apologize either. Let's talk about Modi, please. Yes.
yeah. So before that, so my dad was here, and we were driving around, and I, like, for all the time that he was here, I asked him, "Ki bhai, so you were here. How many Biden posters, boardings, hoardings, whatever, did you ever see? None, not even one. Now, some cars have like, Trump or Biden stickers, but there are no hoardings. So there is such a like a like it's an assault to your senses when you land in India. Pata hai? When you
Oh,
land in India, even that immigration check, you leave it and you go like behind it, and there is a Modi poster. Anyway, the thing that I was saying was, ki bhai, so the story of this man is that he left home since childhood in RSS, believes in the ideology, got into politics because he believes in whatever his political ideology is, he believes in. Meghnad, if you believed in something so much that you literally would give all your life, everything in your life, your relationships, everything to that belief system, would you not become an evangelist for that belief system? And would you not want to talk about it all the time so that you can have more people come to you and also convert into that belief system? Right?
that's because I'm okay. Yeah, I think this is actually a very good question for one simple reason, because I'm also like thinking about this constantly. Like, for example, I do believe in like certain liberal values of
Hmm.
equality and whatever, right?
Hmm.
Am I an evangelist for it? I don't
But
think so.
but
Because
the thing is,
I'll tell you why, right? When you want to do evangelism, like for example, if you have an ideology and you want to convince other people of it, right? There is a definite need there to actually validate those beliefs also, right? If you are able to convince other people of the same values, right, you are able to also gain that sort of validation from the fact that other people also believe what you believe in, right? So brainwashing वगैरह उसी category में आता है, right? But also at the same time, you also have to assume, right, that the audience you're talking to is very vulnerable and also like won't will actually believe you, right? You understand what I'm saying, right? Like for example, if I try to tell you something right now or convince you about, let's say, I don't know, aliens are gaye, right?
hmm,
Your critical thinking brain would be like, ah, aliens, I'll just look out
hmm,
and whatever. But if I knew that you are someone who will not look out of the window, like I will assume that you're stupid, then I can convince you of anything, right? Narcissists do this a lot, where they're talking to people but they will always believe that they are the greatest person in the room and everyone else doesn't know any better, right? There is no mutual respect there. There is no empathy there. There is no idea that, oh, I know certain things, that person knows certain things, as I said earlier, right? There is none of that, right? What you believe in inside your head is that what you say is the most important thing, but what others say, ha, maybe kuch to bhi bol rahe hai. Then you convince them.
so I believe in certain things,
Hmm.
and I do believe that if more people believed in that things, let's say if a majority of India believed in that thing, we will be a better society. I believe that. Maybe I'm
Hmm.
wrong. I believe in that. Now, if tomorrow four journalists for some reason come to me and start asking me about my belief system, I will be very open to responding to them, because I believe that it's a good thing, right? I believe that
Hmm.
if these people start agreeing with me, we have five more people now
Hmm.
who believe in that same thing, and that's just some total good for the society.
Hmm.
Now this person has given much more to his belief system than I or you have, right?
Hmm.
All of his family life, everything, right? So then why would he not want to talk about it is something
But
that I
the
don't
same
get.
logic applies to him also, right? Which is basically he believes in certain things, and
Hmm.
for example, he believes that minorities are evil or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And he thinks that taking away their rights or making them uncomfortable will make us a better society. That, I mean, ultimately, you have to
Hmm.
convince yourself
Hmm.
that you're doing something good. You're bringing some change. You're whatever development कर रहे जो भी कर रहे जो भी दिमाग में cleansing or whatever.
Hmm.
um so the same logic applies to that as well, right? Is what I'm trying to say.
But he's not doing that. No, that's what I'm saying, right? That so or
He
simple कर
doesn't
देता हूँ
need
ना.
to himself, like other people around him are doing it for him, so he doesn't directly have to do it. Like he can just sit
But
back,
there is a
do nothing.
power of bully pulpit, right? So from that uncle who forwards a WhatsApp message to Sadhguru who goes to America, of course,
Hmm.
Sadhgurus are also earning money, but who goes to America to do these concerts, everyone is think at this is what मैं सोचता हूँ, right? Everyone is trying to do the same thing. The uncle is sending you that forward WhatsApp because he actually thinks that is something that should be shared. That is he's not smart enough to create an idea by himself. So he's receiving that idea and sending it to you because now you should see that too. And same with Sadhguru. So why would someone like Modi not do it? Is something that I find
Modi
that.
directly doesn't need to do it. That's what I'm trying to say, right? Like he has other people doing it for him, right? So the thing is that you can also do nothing. When people say divisive, crazy things like "goli maro salo ko," the guy is a minister now,
Hmm.
right? By your actions, you're essentially validating them, right?
That's
Like
true.
basically Sadhvi Pragya, right? Why is she in parliament, right? Modi ji is such a powerful man. Amit Shah is such a powerful man. They could have easily not given a ticket. They could have said that no, divisive figure, terror cases, accusations, all the things. Also, precisely one reason, she will not be able to do the MP's job, right? I mean, that's also a basic reason, right? So they could have easily not given the ticket. They did though, right? They didn't look at everything else. So their actions speak louder than words in a very cliche way, right? And this uncle that you're talking about who is forwarding things, whatever, without any original thought. Again, I come back to the same point I was trying to make earlier. These uncles are also thriving on the Modi brand, right? They basically invoke Modi in a conversation and everything shuts up. Everybody shuts up because there is this feeling that if you invoke Modi, if you invoke some of the work you do, it cannot be challenged, right? Because किसको चैलेंज करोगे ना, लाइक अंकल को चैलेंज करके क्या होगा, मोदी को चैलेंज करेगा कोई? नो, he doesn't take questions. So the conversation just ends there, right? So no matter how much uncle shares and you counter uncle to prove him wrong or to point out कि नहीं ये गलत है, maybe ये नहीं हुआ है, you will keep fighting but you will never get answers, right? So then so now people have just decided shut up, क्या फायदा ये करके, right? Like मेरा mental peace खराब हो रहा है, it's too toxic, it's too, people are tuning out from the news, they just don't read the news anymore, they just like क्या ही करना है मेरे को.
You're so right. This reminds me of something that happened in 2017. So there is a friend, acquaintance, जो BJP supporter, and when 2017 UP में BJP finally won after so many years, I still remember like initially posting that I hope KD Maurya, he's the deputy home minister, right? He's made the chief minister. I hope they don't make Yogi chief minister. Maurya will make you be developed, blah 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 blah. And then 2 दिन बाद they decided Yogi will be the chief minister. And within a day he was like, good decision. So what you are saying is right. So ultimately, like the more like he does not really need to do anything. And this again. So then, what exactly is the role of the people, man?
So I mean, it's a very good existential question you're asking. I mean, I'm actually writing an entire book on this question now, about
fiction ki
existential
non-fiction.
angst. It's non-fiction. Like I have to give it soon. I've been writing it for 2 years now. But that's the thing. I've been asking this so much that what is the point of being a citizen anymore when you cannot question the people in power, right? I saw this while we watched last week, right? Where
saw your tweet and everything.
Yeah, and so it was a private screening, and वहाँ पे, as there is this feeling constantly in that movie that there's this one guy who continues to do his literal job, which is journalism, which is asking questions to power, pointing out real issues, which is like employment nahi hai. He does like a job series, whatever, right? And everyone around him, which is like all the other anchors that they show, are not doing that, right? But this guy is being punished constantly for doing his job, right? The thing is that I think what happens with this whole authoritarian mindset that the authority is right is that anybody questioning the authority is the enemy. It automatically, like just वो category में तुम चले जाओगे, right? If you put a question, if say for example tomorrow Anand Mahindra or someone asks a basic question, कुछ भी, अरे like, or shares a report headline, car consumption down from XYZ to whatever ABC, like just a normal headline, I can bet that they will start calling me an urban Naxal Librandu, whatever, right?
Right.
It just, and it's that basic, where if you are not supporting the brand, if you are not in favor of this brand, if you dare to question it, then you're the enemy. That is the basic, like sort of understanding in all of these people.
2 दिन पहले this American journalist shared a picture of the Mumbai highway
Hmm.
network, or whatever lane extension, and he said it looks hideous.
Hmm.
And the troll army went after him for this statement.
Of
So
course.
much so that he had to delete the tweet, and he had to like send ki bhai, my mental peace is more important. And he's not
Hmm.
even a Desi, an
Hmm.
Indian.
Hmm.
So although I wrote a piece on this on Scroll about the troll and what exactly is the psychology of the troll.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
anyone who wants to read, but
But the troll is also, I think, I also want to talk to you about this now. What do you think is a troll then? Like, I mean, just briefly.
we call them trolls, but I do think that they are also very invested in the ideology,
Hmm.
and they so this one thing that I often talk about is the just world hypothesis.
Hmm.
It's basically what you were just talking about, right? When you grow up in a world, let's say you're an upper caste man, um, or upper middle class, everything in India is created in such a way that it's kind of objectively better for you, right?
Yeah.
And in that environment, when you grow up, and then at some point you still see that there is poverty, there is hunger, there are
Hmm.
myriad problems in India, but your from the tales of your religion to the films that you see to whatever is expected of you as a person, everything is to go and win the world.
Hmm.
So you have a very difficult time mapping these two things together, because the moment you start questioning these problems, what will happen is that you'll start to question your people, right? Because अगर
Hmm.
ये सारा problem है और मेरा like I am like so objectively supposed to do so many things, तो मतलब there has to be something wrong with my people, my ancestors, that kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's not easy to examine your own privilege in this society. For no one it's easy.
Hmm.
Forget India, anywhere else, right?
Hmm.
So what happens in a place where you don't want to examine your privilege, you still have to identify a problem, and then the problem is sold to you as the other.
Hmm.
जब हम छोटे थे तो हमारी माँ हमें कहती थी बहुत ही इनोसेंटली, पढ़ोगे नहीं तो रिक्शा चलाना पड़ेगा.
Yeah.
As if that difference between you and that rickshaw wala is just that उसने पढ़ाई नहीं की. There is
पढ़ाई
no
नहीं.
systemic
Hmm.
problem
Hmm.
at all.
Hmm.
That is the only problem, and that is then how we see the world. Then it's easy for us to say कि भाई जो poor है वो lazy है, welfare is bad, freebies दी जा रही हैं जो deserve नहीं करते हैं, reservation is bad,
Hmm.
everything, because now I am primed to not see any systemic problem.
Hmm.
अब इन सब के बाद आता है एक मेघनाथ जो
Hmm.
ट्वीट करता है कि भाई this thing does looks fishy.
Hmm.
the it's not just a Modi now, it's not just BJP now, it's not just India now, it's actually me, my baap and my dada and everybody.
Hmm.
And so now I'm not just fighting you saying things about Modi, I'm fighting all of these things, and that is how I justify, and that is how I rationalize everything, and that is why UP
like in a way that if they see anything that challenges them, दिमाग में धर्म युद्ध शुरू हो जाता है.
because the moment you accept one of these things is the
Hmm.
moment then the domino will start falling na. अगर
But
तुम
see, that's my thing, right? I this weirdly enough, Apple people who believe in Apple also exhibit this, like from time to time, where it's
I know.
bizarre.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't
It's
know,
just
but
uh-huh.
it's the power of the brand, right?
Uh-huh.
Again, which is uh, like I've had like conversations with some Apple fan people and Android. I'm an Android person, but my thing is that I have tried to use ये whatever Apple का iOS हो मेरे को नहीं समझ में आता. Like, I mean, no, I'm not used to it. Plus, I think Android is very comfortable for me, so I'll continue with this, right? I don't want to switch, right? Again, in no objective reason other than that, right? Initially, like, I was like, oh, Android best, garibon ka phone, whatever. But now I'm like, no, I just use this. I like this, so I continue using this, right?
Yeah.
I've come to a point where if anybody criticizes an Android, I'm like, हाँ होगा, but I mean I'm okay with this, right? Apple में if you basically are like, यार कितना पैसा देते हो तुम ये पगले समान इस डिवाइस के लिए जो हर साल नया आता रहता है, what is this nonsense, what is this behavior, whatever you are questioning, that they will lose it, right? Because they're very personally invested in the success of that brand also, right? They want more people to have iPhones, they want more people to have Apple products for some reason.
In my grad school, this guy, I'm 100% sure he does not even know who we are anymore. I mean, so a Mishra dude from India, he said something, I am an Apple boy. Literally my दिमाग में ये अभी भी है. But you know, this is a great point, because see, what happens is that most of us will live a very mediocre life.
Yeah.
We'll not really have a lot of achievements, and to feel good on a daily basis, we need to associate our identity with something bigger than us.
Something bigger than us, yes.
Okay? And I see this in myself. I'll tell you a very weird thing, which I recognize all the fucking time, but I just still cannot help doing it. If someone is talking to me about moving out of India, firstly, I really push them to do it, because somehow I know that kind of confirms my own decisions, rationalizes it for me. But secondly, if someone says कि US नहीं जाएंगे यार, UK जाएंगे या Germany जाएंगे या कुछ, my brain automatically starts to kind of come up with points on why they should try and move to the US. And I like कुछ भी नहीं है, and objectively, like, there is no difference, right? And so I see this, and I think the reason is basically कि, I mean, you try to rationalize the decisions that you've made in life. And to one of the points that you said, right, कि आज का जो यंगस्टर है वो मोदी को ही देख के बड़ा हुआ है, तो वो क्या करेगा जब वो 35 साल का होगा. यूएस में कहते हैं कि the first time that you vote at 18, you're not political.
Yeah.
So you honestly truly vote for whoever you like more. But your first vote, 99.9% of the time, decides who are you going to vote for the rest of your life. Your first president decides that. And this is something that could happen. Because
absolutely.
we all suffer from this. We want to rationalize things we've done, because if we do not, it's a big existential
you
void
start
that,
questioning your own identity then, and that's very uncomfortable. Like, I mean, questioning your identity, and the worst thing is once you start, you can't stop. That is also another thing, like the other side of this. So one is where you are not questioning your identity. Any sort of questions being asked are seen as an attack, and you have to constantly go out and prove the worth of your identity for yourself more than them. As you said, it's like when you are saying things out on the internet, you're just self-validating and constantly trying to convince yourself as well, right? कि अरे कल मैंने ये बोला था, but same thing I wanted to say, but I said it in a different way, more effective way. अरे amazing, now I'm convinced, right? So you're convincing yourself, basically, self cycle में. There is the other side though, like which I would say is me somewhat. Once you start questioning things, once you start questioning your own identity, your caste, your position in society, capitalism, socialism, kuch bhi pakad lo, like world belief. Once you start questioning money, right, your head spirals. Genuinely. Like, I mean, I have gone very close to the edge of conspiracy theories because of that as well. Which is, the demonetization क्यों हुआ, right? And I एक तो lost it because कुछ तो short circuit हो गया था मेरे दिमाग में उस time पे कि the money that I have in my pocket is worth nothing, right? And I was a very poor child, right? I was struggling and I was like, fuck, ये क्या हो गया एकदम एक रात में. It was a very weird thing that broke my brain, right? I feel like at that point I started questioning the value of money itself, where it's like now I think that whatever मेरे बैंक में पैसा है, they are just digital numbers which can mean nothing tomorrow, right? कोई भी कुछ भी, मतलब सलमान खान आके अगर तुम टीवी पे बोलेगा कि हाँ कल से तुम्हारा सब बैंक बैलेंस हमने ले लिया है, nobody will believe him. But when Modi comes and says the same thing, everybody will हाँ देश के लिए किया, अच्छा किया. Why? The same logic था, उसने किसी को नहीं बताया था. Maybe Salman Khan will not tell anybody. Why? Right? And once you start on that journey, once you start questioning these stories, these made up stories which actually keep us sane, then you go nuts.
Yes. I mean, so a couple of things. Firstly, what you said.
I cannot describe how painful this existence is.
This demonetization thing that you were just mentioning,
Hmm.
yeah, it's
Bol.
fine. This demonetization thing is, so you are an educated individual who has been part of the system, but the like this is what every authoritarian does, right? Pick any institution, and they will try and snap out all the trust that you have in it, and then there is nothing tomorrow. मुझे अभी याद है, जब मैं पहले लोगों से डिबेट करता था अबाउट द गुजरात राइट्स, एंड दे वुड से एसआईटी, सुप्रीम कोर्ट की एसआईटी ने क्लियर चिट दिया है या जो भी, राइट? एंड देन दे विल से, तो यू डोंट ट्रस्ट द सुप्रीम कोर्ट एनीमोर. हाउ मेनी bugs trust supreme court now, right? Even people who are really overjoyed at this government have no faith in one of the premier institutions of this country. That's number one. Number two, I have been where you are in a slightly different way, where it is very difficult for me to now trust the inherent goodness of a certain kind of people. And I have been much more open about it in like personal conversations. And it makes it very difficult to make friends, especially in here where people of my cultural background are not as many. So but the moment I meet someone, the first thing in my mind is ki, they are like that, I'm sure. So like what's the point even? And it makes it very difficult.
Oh, it absolutely does, and you feel very isolated after a point, which I think you've gone through. I think everyone has gone through who's listening to this podcast, I'm guessing. You feel super isolated. You feel like you are doing something wrong. You feel constantly gaslit, and you gaslight yourself also on top of it. And then this spiral just continues, right? The j- just to tell you about the, again, a little bit of a spoiler for the video. Again, it's a long video, I mean, there's lots of stuff happening there. So the one quality that people say Modi does is disruptor, right? He's a creative disruptor, right? I was thinking about this as well. What does disruption mean, and where does it work, right? In tech, right? For example, in tech, like Facebook ने किसी को तो भी unseat कर दिया, फिर Facebook को Instagram ने unseat कर दिया, all of them doing their own little disruptions. Essentially what is happening is, you're in the field of technology, you are introducing a new technology which unseats or changes the old technology that was working, right? And then it's constant, this cycle is constant, and it happens more and more rapidly nowadays, right? Chat GPT, whatever jo bhi hua. But can you disrupt government? Right, it's almost oxymoronic to say this, because government is about stability, you know e- especially in a country like India, where if you go out in the street, there is chaos, right? People in multiple languages saying multiple things, multiple belief systems, everything is different, and it is chaos. Like, you cannot even predict what is going to happen if you go out, right, tomorrow. In this situation, the government is like a counterbalance, which is like, the government is slow, deliberate, and avoids chaos at any given situation, because that is the only way you can plan for the future of this society.
Precisely, yes.
Right? You cannot come in and every other month just disrupt something. Just declare, like, currency gone, farmers को अरे 3 new bills, IPC disrupted, data protection कोई consultation नहीं, वो old bill fuck it, 3 महीने में new bill डाल दो. It's like, it's kind of nuts when you think about it, right? If you are even trying to make a plan in India right now for the future, right? Like 5 years from now, like, there was a time when I was actually thinking ki, nahi, by the age of 32, 33, maybe I'll own a house, or I'll have something, I'll have a car, or whatever it is, right? In a situation like this, where you're not even sure if your money will exist anymore, whether you'll be in jail, if you do even a slight thing wrong, you will be boycotted online, you'll be robbed of your entire work that you have done, right? It is extremely traumatic on a day-to-day basis, right? And people used to come, even still, like yesterday I went somewhere and someone was like, sir, kya brave kaam kar rahe ho aap, like, amazing, you are doing whatever. And I'm not even a journalist anymore, right? I run a YouTube channel, I do tweets, whatever. I don't think I'm doing anything that significant, but for that person who never questions in public, or doesn't have the courage to do it because their entire life will be disrupted as a result, I am doing something magical, right? And I, in my head, I do not have plans anymore. Like I have just trained myself कि बस like कुछ भी हो सकता है, like unpredictable AF. घर ओन करना तो छोड़ ही दो, कल मेरा इनकम बंद हो जाएगा, कुछ भी हो सकता है, मुझे घर से निकाल देगा, लैंडलॉर्ड विल गेट पिस्ड, right? Or something, you know. It's bizarre to live in a situation like this where I cannot even depend on the government that I'm paying taxes to give me some sort of stability, mentally, physically, financially, nothing. A citizen is sitting here and saying this, that I am a very diligent taxpayer, at least give me that. But no, वो भी नहीं मिलेगा, fuck you, you know, like because you don't
So-
believe in our supreme leader.
पहला चीज तो ये कि there are times when I'm scared for people like you. I'm being complete, like sometimes when I read the comments on your YouTube videos or Twitter, it scares me. I often think about Arundhati Roy. She's still living in India,
Yeah.
and like it's scary how kind of these things are. And the biggest thing in all this is, if you think about monogram or Kavadiyas, that kind of thing. So we talked about the difference between Congress and BJP, but the one thing that kind of I get to is, for the longest time the state has had monopoly on violence, so they can curfew 144 whatever. With this recent, even with this such a centralized way of governing things, the state has essentially given up its monopoly on violence. And now what is happening is that there are independent militia groups. What else is these Monumanesa types? They are independent militia groups who can literally do anything, and they can still after that they can expect to be scot.
If you think about it this way, right? Like I think the state hasn't given up the monopoly over violence, they have outsourced it. So they have made sure there are certain groups like you just mentioned who are very much a part of the state now, right? Because the state is not doing anything against them, so they're a part of the state. They're like an extension of the state. You know, it's the same thing, the Wagner group in Russia, right? There was a reason why a militia group was hired, mercenary group, to basically do the war, is because then Russian government doesn't have to take responsibility for all the atrocities that these guys are doing, right? Which is like horrifying atrocities, like literally war crimes. So every time you hire like a militia or a private army or whatever it is, mercenaries, you're expecting that they're expected to do that, right? And the state, if they're not doing anything acting against that kind of a thing, they're, you know, agreeing to it and also giving them like completely a free hand to continue doing those things.
Where I disagree with you is this, that yes, it started this way, but now it's not. When on a Navaratri time, these groups go and shut down a KFC or a McDonald's, the state does not want that kind of publicity at a global stage. The state absolutely does not want that to happen, because while it wants to oppress people that it does not like or does not agree with, it does not want the capital system to, like, it does not want Adani or Ambani or any of these people who essentially fund them to lose money. And when these such independent militias who go and start shutting down meat shops, poor meat shops, fine, but the moment they start doing this to KFC, that is where the state loses, because now the state cannot, because the moment someone decides कि नहीं अब इनको रोकना है KFC बंद करने से, there will always be someone to your right who will say कि क्यों रोकना है, करने दो, because he knows this, usually a he, but could be a Pragya Thakur, because they know on the right that now if I do this, if I make noise around this, a lot of these people will now move to me. This is the new disruption that I could create. And the problem with going down this route of authoritarian religio theocracy, however you want to define it, is this, that if Modi or anyone in the current regime thinks that they will be here forever, they are mistaken, because there will always be someone who's even more right. I mean, we've talked about this, Tradsville versus Raita. There are already noises in this universe where they think Maulana Modi, they say, right? So they already think that Modi is not right enough. In fact, they think he's very left or too secular. So where does this end? And that
But
is where
that's
the
what, no, like I think the Monu Manesar types fall into the category which is more right
Huh.
than these people right now in power, right? But at the same time, by not acting against them, they are also kind of complicit in it, right? So even if they themselves might not be that right, the fact that these people are allowed to exist, to own guns, what the actual fuck? Like they're
So
running around with guns, like and I cannot emphasize how troubling that is, right? In India, where in literally like yahan se 20 kilometer dur, there is literally a group of very angry men running around with guns, and that is just allowed to happen. It's the
at this point,
scariest thing ever.
I think that it's not. I think they have lost. The government has lost their power to even if they don't want it to happen, they don't have the power anymore. I think that's the bigger
Oh,
problem.
absolutely, they have the power. No, that's just an excuse. No, i
No,
i
no, no.
disagree.
When I say they don't have power, it's not like kalko ha police jaake they can get it snatched. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that will not happen, but the moment that happens now, the political capital that this person has, he secedes space. He secedes space to someone like a Yogi who says ki kyun kiya aisa. Doesn't matter, right? Yogi can give a random speech about this,
Hmm.
and then the moment he does, there is a shift that happens. There are, because ultimately,
But Modi will, oh,
mhm,
sorry, Yogi will not do that also, by the way.
someone else could, na.
No, I think the BJP
Mm,
का structural, if you look at structurally,
mm,
Congress में कोई कर सकता है. Congress में there can be a Shashi Tharoor who can come out
mm,
against the president and say things and
mhm.
whatever, and they will still accommodate that, right? But within the BJP, the way it is structured, even if a single person who is like a chief minister or whatever starts asking questions to the central government or Modi or whoever, I think the whole thing falls down, because I think, and the thing is, the person who is asking the question falls down with it. So even they know that they cannot afford to lose this power that they have gathered, and everything is because of Modi in their heads. All the power they have today is because of Narendra Modi. That's just an understood fact of life now, right? It's just they have also like sort of convinced themselves that that is true, and they also convince themselves that they're actually benefiting from it. So that's why that needs to continue to be true, right? So any person operating in this sort of ecosystem, right, which is even the most radical right wing people, right, I feel like they also have sort of internalized this message and they go with it.
Slight disagreement, or rather, my hypothesis is that 20, if assuming elections happen the way they happen in India, national
Hmm.
level elections, 2024, it will again be BJP, NDA, and Modi will be the prime minister. But between 2024 and 2029, the attack on the current establishment will
Hmm.
actually come from the right of BJP, and it does not need to be BJP. See, that's what I'm saying. If there is a person who's ambitious, like we've established, right, you have to be narcissistic to be in politics. Everyone wants
Yeah.
to be prime minister of India,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So if you're ambitious enough, you will have to figure out a way to plot your move
Hmm.
to be that person. And for someone like a Yogi, and may not be Yogi, someone else, we don't even know, maybe we don't know who that person is. The way to do that could be from the right of the current regime.
Hmm.
And if they want to do it, they will absolutely say ki Modi has become weak, or he's giving too much appeasement, whatever, right? However they might want to
Hmm.
do it.
But here's a question, right?
Hmm.
Let's look at this government just objectively, and
Hmm.
and just one simple question is key: if you had to look at the government, what do you think they are considering is their current objective as a government?
That's a that's an amazing question. You know why? Because I maybe you have an answer, but I don't think the government does. I think the only objective of power
Sorry, what? फिर से.
the only objective of power
Hmm.
is to stay in power.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
So that's exactly it, right? So my answer was exactly that, which is कुछ भी करो, power में आना है वापस,
hmm,
like, and then we have to basically maintain whatever we are doing
hmm,
right now. We have power, so we keep it. Um, but think about it this way, right? to stay in power, they have to agree with everything Modi is doing because he's the vote getter. The only way to stay in power is to make sure Modi stays in power and is whoever he is, like brand. But think about it this way, right? I was just having this conversation with someone about two kinds of needs we have, right? Like, let's say goals setting or whatever. One is a milestone, right? Which is basically, let's say, Raj, tomorrow you are like, oh, मुझे BMW खरीदना है, right? So that's a milestone you will achieve. So you'll work for it for like 4 years, whatever. You'll get the BMW, right? And then after that, you'll be like, अब आ गया, अब क्या? The new milestone, you know, you'll be like, oh, और अच्छी गाड़ी चाहिए, whatever, घर चाहिए, जो भी है. Then there are experiences. So sometimes your goals are all related to experiences, right? For example, career choices. You know, like career choices are, people think they are the same goals as material things like milestones. They aren't. Career choices are always like, let's say, I can say मुझे journalist बनना है, but I will have a question about क्यों बनना है. I'll have an answer about क्यों बनना है, right? Which is, after I become a journalist, I will already start imagining what sort of job I'm doing as a journalist. But when you get a car, the only thing you can imagine is you are just going forward and then someday you'll get a new car, right? My thing is, Modi is a milestone man, right? You know, all of his, like all the declarations he makes, all the things, he's a milestone man. He's like, अब ये milestone आ गया, अब वो milestone है, अब ये मिल गया मुझे, अब वो मिल गया मुझे, you know, like whatever. I think in his head, right, he's already a part of Indian history, right? It is consecutive majority terms, whatever. Uske baad kya milestone hai? World leader, right? The only way to become a world leader is to prove that the country is a world leader, and basically they're all like interswappable, right? You can swap Modi with the country with the, so basically country great ban gaya to Modi great ban gaya. This is the thinking, right? So I feel like he's really wanting to establish a name for himself in the world at large now, right? And that doesn't seem to be happening, right? But nobody is also telling him that, right? So nobody in their right minds is going to say कि sir actually ना आप विश्वगुरु नहीं हो. You know, like there are other countries which are saying some very weird things about us. Like people are laughing about thalis and talis and whatever. They make jokes about this, or worse, they ignore it. They don't even care.
Or they don't know. Like most Americans don't know who Modi is.
Exactly.
I know they have no idea.
And for a politician, being ignored is the worst thing ever, right? You would love it if people criticize you. You would love it because at least that keeps you in the news, keeps you in attention, keeps you in focus, right? So you can always convince them otherwise because at least they know you. If you are ignored, that's bad. So taking that point forward, the reason why G20 में अभी हर 100 मीटर में 4 पोस्टर लगे हैं, उसमें से 2 मोदी के हैं, is because he doesn't want to be ignored anymore, right? He feels the country is also ignored and he is also ignored. And there's this another layer of insecurity within our Bhaktajan and BJP supporters that kuch bhi kar lo, but India shouldn't be ignored. You know, we have to be Vishwaguru. People have to think great about us, and we need to like shine as whatever the greatest that humanity has to offer.
ऐसा कुछ करने के लिए you'll have to have some fundamental like real achievements, नहीं?
उसका फर्क नहीं पड़ता ना, like because now the assumption is कि अगर हम enough propaganda करेंगे, if you lie enough, people will believe us. But people are not. So think about it, right? You know, like when you went to the US is when you realized how classroom teacher relationships work. यहाँ पे कौन गया है? Like अभी Indians की बात करो. Like I mean, I'm talking about Indians specifically in India. Whenever they travel, they go tourism wise. No, they go to touristy things, right? You know, उसमें क्या ही interaction होता है लोगों से, right? Everybody is nice to you, whatever. होटल में देख लिया, वहाँ पे भी जाके हम दाल चावल ही खाएंगे. But you come back.
You know, मोदी भी पूछते हैं, but हाँ, sorry.
You come back, but you take nothing from it, like the cultural aspects of that place. But when someone like you goes and lives there, is working there, it's a very different sort of, you know, like experience of a country. Now you're assimilating into the culture. You're also taking from the culture, giving it back, all the things. यहाँ पे I think we still don't know what that means. You know, like if this whole Udaynidhi thing is also one example, right? North के लोग South नहीं जाते.
हाँ, और जानते नहीं कि पॉलिटिक्स कैसे
जानते
काम
नहीं है
होता
कि
है
वहां
वहाँ
पे
पे।
पॉलिटिक्स कैसे है, राइट? बिकॉज तमिलनाडु में पॉलिटिक्स यूजुअली इज इन तमिल और इंग्लिश, राइट? सो तमिल में जब बात करते हैं, दे टॉक अबाउट दिस ऑल द टाइम, दैट पेरियार इज वन ऑफ द ग्रेटेस्ट फिगर्स फ्रॉम तमिलनाडु हु पीपल वर्शिप. DMK, everyone does, like, I mean, yeah, DMK to a large extent also. uh, they are all atheists. They all believe that caste shouldn't exist, so unke liye it's not a big deal to say that, oh yeah, that religion should be destroyed. They're atheists. Atheists say this all the time. But North India mein, because they have never been exposed to that sort of speeches or politics or anything or thought system, they insult, take it as an insult, right? तो वर्ल्ड व्यू एक्सपेंशन की बात कर रहे हो, तो फिर नॉर्थ का साउथ के साथ वर्ल्ड व्यू एक्सपेंशन नहीं हुआ अभी तक, like even politically, or just thought wise, like basic value wise. And that I think is very evident. So it, that's why I think the whole insecurity comes from, we need to be the greatest in the world.
So to your point, a few years ago, when I think the football World Cup before the last one, or two before that, I don't know how real it is, but apparently maybe it's fake news. But there was a news ki in North Korea, the media has told the people of North Korea that the World Cup final happened between North Korea and Brazil, and North Korea beat Brazil by 3-0, and they won the World Cup. What I'm trying to say is that, what you like, if the whole objective is to convince Indians that India is Vishwaguru, then it's much easier than actually to be Vishwaguru.
Indians already believe that.
So
That
then
doesn't matter, huh?
so then what exactly is Modi
They want to convince the
trying to
rest
do?
of the world, but the thing is, they do not understand the fact that जो India में propaganda काम किया, the servile attitude that Indians accepted it with as well, and offered everything, including their brains, finances, pocket में का पैसा to the supreme leader, just without questions. The same does not happen around the world. I think people do not understand the concept of how a relationship between an elected leader and a citizen works. That's what I was coming to. So like when you are doing the same things you have been doing in India and trying to do the same in, like, let's say a US, or projecting it towards the US or a UK or whatever, people are laughing it off. They're like, what nonsense are you talking about? Like, I don't think that makes sense, because their intrinsic value system is different, right? That's what, no, like, if North Indians are trying to convince even a person in Tamil Nadu today that, oh, Dayanidhi is evil, sorry, Udayanidhi is evil, oh my god, destroy nation, Tamil people don't think it's a big deal at all. They're like, what are you talking about, man? Like, ये तो हम मतलब कल ही सुन रहे थे, एक और कोई बोल रहा था, like 1000 साल से सुन रहे हैं यही, right? We are atheists and we don't believe in this. There is like of course there's a Tambram population also there, which is, but it's tiny,
Very small. Yeah.
very tiny. In Kerala, for example, you go and talk about the evils of communism, right? They're like, yeah, we're very aware. We are not exactly communist. We're also like doing welfare. We're also getting like companies to invest. They'll also be like, yeah, this is normal. I mean, like, what are you talking? But North India, which is like Noida media amplified North India, all these concepts are weird, right? Which is like, how can you not accept what the government is saying, right? And
So then
people are like,
how would
why
these
would we?
milestones, so how would he manage this? So basically what you're saying is that there will be a fundamentally like एक टकराव होएगा where
हो
his
रहा है
milestones
already,
टकराए with the
आराम
global
से.
aspiration. So then there is no way out of it, right? So then what
I
is
feel like
going
this
to happen?
G20 is a mistake. I genuinely think this G20 is a giant mistake. Like the whole show that they are putting up. This is, I think, an attempt being made, a very direct attempt to do exactly what I just said, which is basically convince the world that India is the greatest, right? And how are you doing it? Through propaganda, right? The fact that they're putting in so many hoardings everywhere is not just a sign of insecurity. It's also them trying to convince a Biden and like a French prime minister and an UK prime minister that Modi is the greatest, right? Graphs लगा के रखे हैं वहां पे, like literally, like world leaders के
देखा
graphs लगा के रखे हैं. 78% Modi ji. Do you really think these people will take that seriously? They will literally laugh at us, right? And I can completely imagine why. The thing is, now in their attempt to not be ignored, they're doing the same thing that we did in India, thinking that it's the greatest thing to do, and the world will see us that way. That is my fear, right? अभी तक तो इग्नोर कर रहे थे, पता भी नहीं था कि क्या हो रहा है, right? Now all of their leaders are going, all of their press is here, right? Did you read that news item which said that Biden's team wanted like a press interaction, and
Yeah.
we said no, right?
Yeah.
Even Biden can't be asked questions by his own press now, right? And everyone from the White House correspondents to everyone is like, what is this ridiculous nonsense? Why are we even here, right? So now, the funny thing is, they'll still be here, but then now like, we have to do something. They'll start doing other stories. They'll start asking questions to other people, right? And then we will be like, yeah, that's awkward.
The one thing that I will tell you though is so this is something that I do because I have like vantage in both India and US, right? I want to see what exactly is US. So if like I went through, for example, the CNN, MSNBC, and Fox sites, there is no mention of G20 in any of their front pages. In the world, for CNN, in the world section, there is like a line. There's not even a photo. When you click on the link, then there is one article about, and it is also like while the world is going through a tough time, it's India's moment to shine, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. So my thing is, I don't think they care. Like I don't think anybody cares about G20. Like I don't think it's like Olympics.
No,
They don't
they
really.
might not care about G20, but they might care about what their prime ministers and presidents are doing in other countries. My thing is, there is some level of curiosity there as well, where you are going and meeting 20 other leaders. Again, I'm not saying it's like a big event. Most people might not even follow the news. It's fine. Even in Delhi, people might not know ki kya ho raha hai. Like even the Chandrayaan thi, there were like MPs giving bites saying ki, "Arey, haan, I hope the people who went there come back nicely," or whatever. So they don't care, right? It's like, "Arey, kuch to bhi hua hai, ye Modi ji ne kiya hai. Oh my god, amazing," whatever. But I think in other countries there might be some curiosity to see, and there might be some curiosity to see what their elected leaders are up to. Unlike us, who they might ask some questions कि क्या कर रहे हो वहाँ पे, G20 से क्या निकला. They'll go back and maybe they'll get those questions asked or whatever it is. So some sort of attention will come to India in that context.
The one thing that even when Modi was here, right, in the US, I did feel the disproportionate coverage that India was giving to the event compared to, like, again, I don't know if you've seen Pew's recent report came out. 40% Americans do not even know like who Modi is.
Yeah.
And so that's the level like that they are, and of course you cannot blame. US is a very inward looking country, so that's another thing. So I don't know, like I just feel that this is again something, the shosha which will impress everyone, but in India, but I don't know what effect it will have in the world. But I did see, by the way, to your point, IB Times, International Business Times का एक article देख रहा था मैं, अभी आया है कि India has spent 7 times more money than Germany.
Yeah, Germany. I saw that. Yeah, and not surprising at all. Like I mean, यहाँ पे तो monuments की भी लिपि पोताई कर दी है. Like I mean, like old carvings on monuments are now plastered because जल्दी में सब कुछ अच्छा करना था. And it's tragic. Like there's this Mehrauli archaeological park which we used to go to, and वहाँ पे एक tomb है, very beautiful. Like there are these markings inside. I saw a photo of it now. It's completely white and completely plastered over. It's just horrifying.
We don't really care about any legacy except Modi ji की legacy.
And the thing is, हमारा जो media है, I feel like in a lot of ways is also very used to this now, used to doing this, which is just Modi के बारे में बात करो, nothing else. And it's also easy for them because all they have to do is whatever they get from the PMO, whatever they get from the IT cell or whatever it is, वही चलाना है बस, right? दिमाग लगाने की जरूरत ही नहीं है. Their job is easy. They get the money, they get the ads, they get everything, and कोई effort करने की जरूरत ही नहीं है अभी, right? The only effort they have to do is to stand out from the other people who are doing the same thing, which is the weirdest thing ever also, by the way, which is that the other person also got the same line the other person also got the same line. All editors had the same line कि आज रात को ये चलाना है, and it is very obvious that is happening because रात को वही चलाते हैं सब, like I mean the same topic, right? Even this India versus Bharat thing, UCC, just name it, right? So how will you stand out if you're doing the same thing? It makes no sense. Nobody is also asking this, that within their rooms, within their whatever, within their organizations also, that listen, if Republic TV, Times Now, Aaj Tak, all of them are doing the same thing, how will a News 24 stand out? So a News 24 then stands out using ridiculous stories, made up stories, like that Pakistani PUBG player who came to India. They've been relentlessly doing it.
पता है, the media taking in the government line and completely like following it is also not new and has happened in the past. So again, not fundamentally something that we do, but the thing is, even in this, we have become like, outside of like proper fascism under Mussolini, there has always been like the Chinese system, right? Like those kind of systems. There has always been someone or some group that has had a voice कि भाई नहीं ये सही नहीं है, there is the other side of the story as well, or there is some other side as well.
चाइना में कहाँ पे है?
नहीं है, कह रहा हूँ outside of China and fascism, outside of them, I'm saying, like even like US, there is Fox, but then there is CNN or MSNBC also, right? And people know what they are going to. Now, like India is entering a weird place where like, so
we want both.
So NDTV did a 9-part documentary on Modi ji.
Yeah.
So
no, but very interestingly, like the G20 can be expanded into also like talking about how awkward our position is right now, which is, so if you look at like forms of government, and if you look at just how, like, let's say you said the Chinese system of government, right, which is like complete censorship, complete control over citizens, like running the country like a factory basically, right? Like the only thing that you have to do is you're a means of production and you're just doing that as a citizen, right? You fit somewhere. But then there is America, which is a different form of like free speech, values of free speech, gun ownership, personal liberty, all the things. India wants both. So the thing is that we were always in this limbo type system of government. Even in our textbook, we are called the mixed economy or mixed system of government, whatever, which is like we are not able to decide which way we want to go, right? Which is maybe a good thing, right? Which is actually maybe a good thing. But at the same time, what is also happening is that we also want both. So we want China to be happy, but we also want the US to be happy, right? So if you want to be defined as an Indian, it is so difficult, right? Like as an American, what do you believe in as an American? Oh, I believe in free speech. Oh, I believe in giving more power to corporations.
Freedom.
Yeah. As a Chinese, what do you believe in? I believe in Xi Jinping. I believe in the CPP.
So don't you feel we are much closer to how China is than?
So like यहाँ पे बताओ ना तो मतलब like I mean I refuse to believe that all people will answer with, oh, I believe in Modi ji. No, we are somewhere in the middle, right? Where it's like there is a chunk of people who are saying that, oh, I believe in my liberal values and secularism and what we stand for, which is unity in diversity, which has been taught to us from school. And there is another crowd which is now saying something else, which is, I do not believe in secularism. I believe in what my authoritarian leader says. I believe in the party that I vote for and whatever they say. And I also believe that India is a Hindu country and Hindu Rashtra and whatever, right? But that not all of them are saying one thing. Even Republicans in the US do believe that, oh, we do have to fight for basic values. There might be like little differences idhar udhar, but as an American, if you ask them, they would more or less have the same answer. India mein nahi hai wo.
The common, so you were talking about authoritarian, right? Being authoritarian or being servile toward authoritarian. So the difference that I notice in US is that no matter who is in power, the whole way of except there is a population of newly converted population of 20-25% Trump fans who look at Trump almost like how Bhakts look at Modi. But largely the philosophy of America has been ki subvert the power, subvert authority. In fact, there is a
Yeah.
whole, like, it's a weird tangent, but like if you look at the startups in India, all the different startups, there is this whole startup economy in India, but all of these startups are, none of them are new. All of them are copied from something that has happened in the US.
Yeah.
And if you look at the US scene, there is a reason that a Facebook and a Google and a Tesla and all of these kind of things come out of US, because the whole philosophy of life in US is to kind of subvert the norm and then
Yeah.
do something beyond it. Whereas
Yeah.
in our case, we try to stay within that box and then create a safe space within that box. So in that regard, I think we are very much, I feel, maybe in that spectrum we are closer to China, where and it goes to that whole idea of traditional family values of so I think that we are not in the middle. I think we are more
No,
towards.
I kind of disagree with you there a little bit, because I mean, the tragic part of our privilege bubble is that we just see people within this privilege bubble, right? And I feel like the narratives that are pushed into this privilege bubble also sort of start coloring our views a little bit. And this I mean realized this in the last few years only, right? Which is when I actually went on the ground to cover elections and went to villages and spoke to people and spent like a considerable amount of time in rural India, even if it was covering elections, I think वहाँ पे जो narratives सुने वो that are very different, right? Very different in the sense their disparity is so obvious, right? Which is खाना नहीं मिल रहा है और ये गवर्नमेंट अगर खाना दे रही है ढंग से without abuse, without any problems, without leakages, they're voting for this government. So they're making sure that you do get khana. They're making sure in your if corona hits your village, even if the out of the 100 people 20 people are dead, they will ensure that the 80 people that are left get 500 rupees in their bank, and they also ensure that they get food and whatever. So tum bach gaye. So then they're like, oh my god, hamari to jaan government ne bachai. But because at least we didn't die of starvation, that's the logic there. So if you want to look at it this way, right, which is as long as people continue being dependent on the government, they will not challenge authority for sure, right? But at the same time, if push comes to shove, they flip. This flips very quickly, right? And all it takes is basically them to get to a point in life where their basic needs are fulfilled, but then other needs come up, which is education, healthcare, a car, or like a house, or other things which are needed. Once that happens is when I think people start subverting authority a little bit also, because they get the self confidence to do it also.
That's a fantastic point, because if you think about the complete loss of Congress's hold over Indian middle class, there are two moments that I kind of think about. The first is so if you look at the UP state election 1984, Congress sweeps it, and then suddenly 1989 and then 1992. By 1992, there is no Congress in UP anymore. Right? And what happened in that time is Mandal. And Mandal happened, and Samajwadi Party and BSP and then BJP after Mandir completely took over. Like the priorities changed, and Congress fizzled out. Similarly, at national level, the Sixth Pay Commission happened in 2009, 8, 9. That election still, goes UPA. But there has been, if your family has people who have government jobs, if your father, like my dad, our economic condition literally changed the moment Sixth Pay Commission happened and after it, right? And all these people who benefited so much from this flipped. And so your point is very right that does happen, but even in that, right, we are very servile to authority, as you said, right? So ultimately that servility stays, authority figure changes maybe.
Maybe it's also a question of I mean, we are technically a youngish country only, like I mean 75
very
years
young,
is nothing,
like
very young.
technically अच्छा वैसे मैं तो median age में भी very young, but
हाँ वैसे ही very young. Like I look at 10 years of one country as 1 year old. So technically we are like 7.5 years old right now, like a child, 7.5 year old child, right? Hamara abhi, like as they say, in neuroscience, that the first 8 years is when your brain develops, and then after that you cannot do anything to change your basic programming that is in your brain. So I feel like we still haven't reached that stage where I mean, as a collective, we are still trying to find out who we are, our self identity, our identity as a country, as a society, as people. We are still in that exploratory mode, curious mode. We are dabbling in a bunch of things all throughout. And I think at some point, once we become a much more mature sort of democracy, maybe like 100 years, I feel we will stabilize more. And I feel these feelings of anti-authoritarian feelings or anti-establishment feelings will become more comfortable for us, because abhi we haven't defined our identity. So what will you defend, right? So once you are sure about your identity, once you are secure about your personal identity, as a people, as a country, as a society, after that is when you start asking questions to the authority. I genuinely feel about that,
हो सकता है.
because my parent, if you just take our parents for example, um I feel like there is still a like a question of identity within them, right? Where do they stand, what are they valuable for, what faith, what is happening, because they constantly encounter someone who doesn't have the same value system, right? So they cannot identify, they cannot really coexist, or they feel like they cannot coexist with so many value systems around them. But eventually I think all of it will mix together, and eventually all of us will find a common identity one way or another, forcefully maybe, or maybe just by natural selection. It's I mean, I can't believe I used natural selection, fucking Darwin. But yeah.
Tech bros all use.
Yeah,
But that
मुंह से
that
निकल गया, sorry guys.
दो चीजें, एक तो पहले कि if that is true, right, when US was around 70 or 80 years old, they had a massive civil war, if you remember.
Yes.
So that
We are definitely going through some tough times in the years to come. I mean, there is no way that the last 10 years and the kind of disruption that has been caused by the regime will not have some long lasting consequences, and long lasting, but maybe even more immediate consequences. I mean, economy gir raha hai, unemployment ho raha hai, crimes बढ़ रहा है, all these things are happening. Like even the Manipur situation and the Haryana situation, where gunmen running around, like whatever, tribal ethnic wars happening. These are also like tiny sort of windows into what we are going to see maybe soon, right? And that is scary, I agree. But I feel like now at this point, I think it's inevitable. Like, I mean, I cannot imagine what will happen if this government actually loses. Sometimes I'm scared of that, which is basically all these people they have groomed for the last 10 years. I have no idea what sort of nutty reaction they might have to something like a Narendra Modi losing the election, or like they will come up with all sorts of conspiracy theories about how like the establishment did this and whatever, and you don't know at that point what system is there that is going to save us, because all the systems have been already dismantled, right? And it's really worrying that way. But
I
I mean,
actually,
fingers crossed.
he will not.
No, fingers crossed to what I believe in genuinely. I believe in our incompetence. Like, even if we are an authority, we are not a competent authority, right? Ever. Like, even our authoritarian regime is kind of stupid. Like, they do stupid shit all the time, and people see it and laugh at it also. They're not like competent. Their extreme incompetence just shows, whether no matter how much they hide it. So I feel that is going to save us a little bit, even if you have to do like a large scale, you know unfortunately, genocide, like the Nazis did. They were extremely competent while doing it. They were like systematic, they were like changing literature, they were changing minds, they were spreading propaganda very systematically. यहाँ पे नहीं हो रहा है इनसे, बहुत
हाँ.
incompetent है और बहुत chaotic है. So I think both those things will save us.
On that note, I think
Yes.
we will take a pause here.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And
And
ask people to follow my channel,
of course, 100K.
Meghnad. Yes,
And
Meghnad.
Meghnad. And also, what will your YouTube series be called?
So I'm calling it the Modi review right now.
Acha.
It's a very simple thing that I thought would be like nice, just like it's a Modi review, and I don't know how many episodes there will be, because my mind is kind of blowing right now because of the amount of things that I have to say, like and make sense of. So one after the other, I'm going to do like multiple episodes.
Okay, fantastic. So the Modi
Yes.
review and follow Meghnad.
Yes.
And with that note, it's a wrap.
Thank you. Bye. हुआ था the G20? Like,
Indonesia
how much Bali politics do we know?
Long years ago, we made a trip with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge.
8 नवंबर 2016 की रात्रि को 12 बजे से
चीफ मिनिस्टर के लिए मेरा एक ही संदेश है कि वो राजधर्म का पालन करें।
हार्डवेयर वालों की सोच क्या होती है, हार्ड वर्क वालों की सोच क्या होती है।
अरे ये ना पंजाब की खुशबू।